welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I will be your host for 2 o'clock in the morning. No, that's not true. That's not true. Sounds true, but it's not. I have spoken to creators. I have spoken to designers. I have spoken to logistics people, and now I've spoken to people that run kind of events. And we had Dave Wright from Tabletop Scotland on not too long ago. So it only felt right to address the balance by when you've got a Scottish kind of tabletop event, you really have to get a kind of an English tabletop event just to balance the books, because we don't want anybody complaining. So joining me today, who's completely regretting actually doing this probably after that ridiculous intro, is Mark Cooke from Airecon.
From Airecon.
There you go. Do you want to know the truth?
Yeah, go.
When I ever first heard of Airecon, I thought it was in Ireland.
Yeah, we've had that before, because people think it's like E-I-R-E.
Yeah, because I misread it, so I'm an idiot. Yeah. Thanks for...
No, it's because I live in Aireborough.
Oh, right, okay.
When I first started it, I was at work one day and I thought, Airecon, because I live in Aireborough, that'll be funny. Let's start a convention called Airecon in my house. It's about 4 years ago now, and then so Gen Con is named after Lake Geneva.
I did not know
That's
that.
what it's Gen Con, yeah. So I was like, what bodies of water are near my house? The River Aire, and I'm in the Aire Valley in Aireborough. Airecon, and it's actually, I've still got the first kind of logo I did on my laptop back then, and it says Airecon. It's in the colours of Guiseley, which is where I live in North Leeds.
Uh-huh.
So it's blue and yellow, the colour of the local football team.
Fantastic.
And it says Airecon, it's cool.
Oh dear. We better tell these good people out there. The reason that we do this is quite simply because there isn't enough podcasts out there about board games. And the other reason that we do this is we've already given the reason why we're already doing this, because Airecon is pretty much round the corner.
Yeah.
It's almost here.
2 weeks.
It's kind of like if you've just got over Christmas and you didn't think anything could get any more exciting, then Aircon's here to make Christmas look like just a boring holiday.
Yeah.
I've kind of built up, haven't I?
A little bit, yeah.
But what we're here to do tonight is we're going to talk about Airecon, but we're going to find out a little bit more about your good self.
Great.
Because find out a little bit about the man behind the convention, as we would say. So we're going to have a little look at the booking of the past. We're going to have a little look at the small cues of the present before jetting off into the special events table of the future.
That's good.
It's utterly rubbish. Do you want to tell us a little bit about, how did you get into, obviously not the convention, but how did you get into the kind of the hobby to begin with?
So, I don't know, it feels like since I've met my wife, I think there's probably 2 types of families. And there's some families that play games at Christmas, and then there's other families that don't play games at Christmas. Mm-hmm. And I'm from a family that plays games at Christmas, and it's something I just grew up with. And we played, all the sort of standard family games, and as well as like silly made up ones. And used to play like Queen or Scabby Queen, I think it was called, with my nan when I was younger, and things like that. But eventually got, as one of those kids at school, I got into Warhammer. And joined like a Warhammer 40k club and things like that, and got into a bit of RPG stuff as well. I used to play one called Cyberpunk 2020.
Oh, right, okay.
I used to play quite a lot of.
Which is interesting considering it's now 2 years away.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to go back and try and get some of my character sheets and see kind of if it's how much of that has come true.
I've got an augmented eye.
Yeah.
I've got a cannon that shoots plasma bolts. I've got a flying car.
Yeah, definitely. They would definitely have been flying cars, self-tying shoes,
It's
self-drying clothes. Yeah.
it's a dystopian future. It's like, well, actually.
Yeah. So yeah, it was kind of all of that when I was younger, and then I suppose I got to maybe college, maybe just after sort of sixth form.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of came to uni and left my army at home, my painted Eldar army that my dad chucked away.
You're joking me.
Yeah, which was nice of him. Yeah, I don't know why.
How many did you have? Did you have quite a lot?
It was fairly sizable. Yeah, it was a good. We used to have sort of fairly regular 2,000 point battles, so it was a decent size that I'd collected over years from when I was. We were talking about it earlier today. My first job as a farmhand, where I used to earn £1 an hour. Wow. So it'd take me 4 hours to buy a lead miniature. 4 hours of slaving on the farm.
You would have appeared in one of those kids' charity adverts.
Yeah. Help Mark buy his Eldar. So
just a picture of you crying with like one little Eldar in your hand, going, "Mark wants to start an army, but he can only start an army with your help. Text Eldar to 62238. Give Mark £1."
Yeah. So I kind of dropped out of that at uni. Still playing, obviously. I played a lot of poker at uni, and then still played games when I went home. And it's like I say, all the sort of standard ones. Pig. We used to play a lot of Pig. I don't know if you've played that, which is
I can't say I have.
A really silly game with cards where you just got to try and match 4 cards, and as soon as you do, you put your finger on your nose, which is why it's called Pig. And then the last person to put their finger on the nose is the pig, which seems a bit weird, but we used to come up with all sorts of silly variations, like you had to text the person opposite you, and then as soon as one person started it, everyone could do it, whether you've matched your 4 or not.
Oh,
so but then it was like the last person to receive a text, they were the pig, and it's just just gets silly. And then I was on some kind of weekend away just with some guys and stuff, and then one of these guys had brought some of the more modern games. So this is probably now maybe 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
By this point, I'd already got my wife to agree that she would marry me. We were only kind of boyfriend and girlfriend.
Yeah.
She had said that she would marry me, and then I suddenly fell headfirst into this hobby because I was introduced to games like Catan and Carcassonne and all of these kind of things on this weekend away. And then it's kind of like, well, it's too late now. You've committed. Pretty soon after, it kind of, there seems to be the phases of when you kind of first get into modern gaming, I suppose, isn't there? Where you just buy everything. Just everything's great.
I've got to experience it all. It's like, well, other people have got copies of those games. I don't care. I don't think you understand. It's Carcassonne or nothing.
Yeah. So that's about 6 years ago. The year after that was my first games expo that I went to, and I think maybe the year after that, it took a couple of years. I went out to Essen.
So you fell in deep then. I mean, most people, expo is like, well, if I'm in the area, I mean, where I am, the Games Expo is like, it's a trek and a half, and it's not only getting down there now, it's actually getting accommodation. I mean, last year was apparently the biggest nightmare because flipping Gary Barlow and his 2 singing pals turned up, and apparently all the hotels were booked out for months in advance.
Yeah. So there wasn't that issue. The first one I went to, I think they'd not long been in the Hilton.
Right.
And they didn't have all of the rooms at the Hilton the first year I went. They'd only just kind of opened up the second trade hall or something. So that was then. I still have my copy of Catan. I still have my copy of Carcassonne. But many other games as well.
Are you? I mean, how's? I mean, did you ever kind of forgive your dad for throwing out all of your elders? Or?
Yeah, eventually.
Eventually.
It'd be interesting to see, like, if he had kept them, whether I'd got back into that as well. Like, because I would be like, well, I've got an army, I could just brush it off and have a go again. But now you kind of look at it and you go, you know, it was expensive back then.
Yeah,
This is what that was like 15, whatever years, 20 years ago. This is now, like, you look at some of the Warhammer stuff. It's like, how are kids affording this?
I know. It's like I was talking about the other day about people talking about Asmodee having some kind of mad grip on the market now, and it's like, you are aware that Games Workshop are just coining it at the moment, and they've got much more money than what Asmodee have, so you don't have to kind of have to worry about that. Was there a little fire that was lit under you when you were going to the expo and when you were going to Essen? Because as I say, it's not normally something that eases themselves into. Kind of, were you kind of was there something about going to the expos that kind of made you think, oh yeah, this is my bag. I do like kind of going around these halls. I like the kind of the buzz, the excitement, the crowds and stuff like that.
Yeah, certainly. And like at the time, I'm still working for the same company, but I've changed jobs. But at the time, I was actually working in like events organisation. Then, kind of quite different what I was doing. But I kind of went and I just saw like all these people, you know, thousands and thousands of people at Expo, and even tens of thousands of people at Essen, who were all just coming and having an amazing time. And then I kind of came back from that Expo, or maybe it's the year after, and I was kind of thinking, oh, there must be something else in the country. And then there was a few, but they're kind of maybe a bit more low key, and they've kind of got their crowd, and they're happy with where they're at. But really, there wasn't anything else. I think I went to Dragon Meet maybe.
Yeah, but
that's the year after that.
That's London, though. And I mean, let's face it, the Expo's Birmingham, and then there's not really many that are there's not many that are near, that are up north.
Yeah, there's someone tried one in Leeds, and it's kind of a fairly small thing that I went along to. That was actually, it was really fun, and just showed me actually you can still have a great event on a smaller scale. And so that's maybe when I said, well, I'll have a crack, and I'll just invite a few people around to my house and see how we get on. And then, certainly then, like a lot more have cropped up probably in the last 2 years. Quite a few have started, which is great because, the more accessible it is, I suppose, for people. Because even, if you think even if it stayed at maybe Airecon, Games Expo, and then Dragon Meet, you still got the whole of the sort of southwest, most of Scotland that are hours and hours away from, even being able to just go for a day and check it out and say, is this any good? Is this something that I want to go to?
Yeah.
It's like, it's quite a big commitment that you've got to, like, it's probably, 4 or 5 hours drive to your nearest one, and then you've got to get a hotel, and then what if you don't like it?
What happens if you go there and you just go, this is rubbish?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, it's just a hall full of people playing Magic the Gathering. I don't want to be here.
Pokemon.
My worst nightmare ever. But it is a commitment in kind of the monetary terms as well, because you forget it's all about getting the ticket, but driving down somewhere and stuff like that as well. But you're right. I mean, there's other kind of expos that have opened up. You've got the City of Games, which just run its first one. Good old Frank.
Yeah.
Frank West, lovely Frank West, and then you've got the Glasgow Games Festival, which
and then Compulsion over in Edinburgh,
which is run in the TV actually. I think it's run in the actual kind of university.
Yeah, the uni, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. Did you kind of get out and about to other ones then? Were you, as part of kind of research into Airecon, did you want to try and kind of experience as many as possible, or did you want to try and go with your own kind of vision of how you wanted things to run?
Yes, I suppose it was somewhere in between. So, actually, when we did the first one, when I did the first one in my house, it wasn't. When I organised that, there was no thoughts of it becoming a proper thing. Like I said, it was just a joke that I thought of at my house and said, I need to run something called Airecon because I find it really funny. And so when I did that one, I wasn't really thinking about it being a proper thing. But I think that was the year where I'd been to Expo, and then I'd just had such a brilliant time there, and just some of the, just some of the experiences that I'd had there, and what a kind of convention setting allows that maybe a games day or a games club, or just having a night round at your house that you can't do in that kind of setting.
Yeah.
Just some of the experiences that it allows. I was like, yeah, this is actually really good. So I said to my mate Ben, who had been there as well, I said, maybe we should just actually have a go at this and try and make it a proper thing, because like I said, really, especially around here in sort of the Leeds or sort of Yorkshire area,
yeah,
there wasn't really. It was go to Birmingham or go over to sort of Stockport, I think, or Derby or London, and that was it, or up, right up into Scotland to go to Glasgow or Edinburgh. And I was like, well, let's just have a go and see what happens.
So was there a few? You said you did the first one in your house. The first Airecon was done in your house.
Yeah. So we had. It's not where we live now, but the house, the flat that we moved, it was actually a flat that we were in before.
Oh, that's amazing.
And it was a really unusual flat. As you kind of came in, it was all really low and kind of just like a normal flat. But you kind of, as you walked into the living room, it was like this double height living room that had a mezzanine level, and it was just this like amazing room. That that's what, when we went there, that's why we ended up going for that flat, because we were just like, wow, this is really cool. And so we only had, I think we had three tables set up, and then we just had lots of little random things around. And I still put on some events, so we stopped and we all had lunch together and watched like a documentary on how they make board games or something.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And then we had like a little event where we would we tried to design a game there. It was terrible and very unsuccessful, it was still fun.
Did you do sandwiches, or did people have to bring their own lunch?
I think we ordered in like pizzas and stuff, and
so cool.
It was like there was no cost to it. It wasn't like ticketed or anything, but it was sponsored by Travelling Man. So I just went to Travelling Man and said, "Oh, can you give us some games to play?"
Yeah.
Travelling Man's the shop that's kind of in our local game store, and they were like, "Yeah, sure," because they're really nice like that.
Crack on.
And that was kind of it. And we gamed until late into the night, and some people stayed over, and then we started again early the next morning, and kind of just went on from that. I think my wife was going. It started on that weekend, I think, because my wife was going away on a hen do or something.
Oh right,
like,
okay.
I'll just do it, and we'll have a go and see what happens.
And if it ended up a horrible mess, you could just say stag do, and then you could just move on. And if people say, Mark, do you remember you put on that really disappointing kind of games weekend? As I can't remember a thing. I was so drunk.
Yeah. I was in a bad place.
I was in a bad. I was about to get married. I was in a bad place.
Yeah.
How many people went then? Did you have quite a few?
I tried to remember exactly a few times, but I know across the weekend I think it was about 30 different people from various games clubs and stuff. And that's actually where we did more of our research, was actually visiting lots of games clubs.
Oh, right, okay.
Just chatting to people and seeing, what do you want from a convention, rather than visiting others. Because we could visit another convention and see something that they were doing that we thought was cool, but everyone else thinks was terrible. So we copy it, and we just end up copying the terrible thing. So instead we went around and just chatted to people and said, what do you want from a convention? What's the thing you're looking for? And the thing most people said time and time again is that we just want to have space to play games, which is kind of obvious. But, like as great as Games Expo is, they have challenges with finding enough table space as they grow and grow and grow for people. And I think, sort of Dragon Meet was fairly similar in terms of the board game side of things. So we back then, we just said, right, well, we'll do one where people can sit down and play games, and we'll do all this other fun stuff as well on the side. But
okay.
The main thing will be make sure everyone can have a seat, make sure everyone has space at a table to sit down, and that's what we're still trying to do. So this next one now, which will be our 4th official event, the 5th if you count my house. But we're expecting about 1,000 people. So in the open gaming area, we've got over 1,000 seats, and that's not including the RPG zone and the events room and some other spaces that we've got. We just and that was the first thing we did when we were planning. We were like, well, we're expecting 1,000 people, so we need 1,000 seats. So let's start with that, and then we'll see what else we can fit in around it.
Did you do researches into costings and stuff like that as well? Were you kind of wanting to make sure that people, they were able to just turn up and, I guess, not feel that they were paying out an absolute fortune for something they were going to go and be kind of going and doing for the first time?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's something I've always been quite impressed with the Expo, is I think it's incredibly good value in terms of the ticket price.
Yeah.
And, the actual getting in is still only 25, 26 quid or something for a full weekend.
Which is nothing.
And I think,
nothing,
that first year that I went, I was like, this is crazy. Like, this is something else where you'd pay 40, 50 quid for this at least and still think it was good value. So, that was really good. So that was certainly something that we thought of, and obviously you have to do calculations, and thankfully Ben, like I said, my mate Ben that I started it with when we started properly, he's like a qualified accountant. We actually work in the same place, but he's in the finance department, and he was quite good at kind of working out and saying, well, this is how many people we would need to come to sort of break even. This is how many we'd need if we wanted to make a little bit of profit or whatever. Mm-hmm. So he was really good. It's obviously not that simple, but breaking everything down and sort of saying, "Oh, this is what we need to do. Do we think we can do that?" And then also sort of tempering my crazy ideas of wanting a TP. That was one that I wanted this year. I wanted a TP, but we couldn't afford the TP, so I wasn't allowed my TP.
One day,
so I wanted an RPG TP. But it wasn't.
That's so good. That's
so we've ended up with a RPG marquee instead, which is still pretty good.
It's okay, but it's not as good as an RPG. I can't even say it. A TP.
RPG TP.
RGP. Oh, it's just so good. Listen, if you do rent out TPs, then Airecon
cheap
next
TPs.
year. Cheap. No, with that, you'll get mentioned in the program.
Oh yeah.
And I tell you, these gamers, they're bloody mad for TPs.
I love TPs.
They're
Yeah.
TP daft. They're TPDAFTs.
Yeah. So that was like a good mix of kind of the things that he's able to do that I just can't, and we kind of balance each other out pretty well. So yeah.
Was there the kind of the legal side and things like that to take into consideration? When you're doing an event, I think, is there not a case that there's a whole pile of legal stuff, health and safety stuff that rears its ugly head, that I think is a difference. Folks say, "Oh, we'll get a couple of hundred folk in a room together. How difficult can that be?"
Yeah.
And was that, I guess, with your background, kind of being in the event management side of things, was that something that you had kind of easy access to in terms of kind of resources, or were you aware of things that you had to look out for?
Yeah, so the first couple of proper events that we did, so don't count the one in my house. I didn't do any kind of risk assessment for that. But when we sort of first made it a public event, we actually used, where we work has quite a big sort of training auditorium area, and that's what we used. And so obviously our work have a load of risk assessment type stuff. And Ben, like I said, he is well up on the stuff that I'm not. So he was well aware of things like public liability insurances and things like that you've got to get. There's probably things that we should have done in the early ones that we didn't do because we didn't know about them. But certainly when we moved to Harrogate and we went to the convention centre, they obviously know all of this stuff.
Yeah.
They're very helpful. That's one of the reasons why we chose the venues, because the staff there were just really up for it. They were just like, yeah, we want this event to happen. What can we do to make it happen? So they're really good in saying, well, actually, you need this as well, and then you need this, and then can you fill this out? And so they were really helpful. Even things like a Sunday trading license, things like that. Because you just don't think about it. Just say, I just
No.
want to sell some games. And it's like, well, it's actually, because of the size of the trade space, you have to have permission to do that.
It's technically kind of illegal if you do
Yeah,
look
exactly.
at it like that kind of way. Because I guess this is what happens when you try and make something fun. It turns out that underneath it's like a swan, that you've got the kind of the legs of legislation kind of paddling away, kind of underneath, kind of like pretty kind of madly. Did you have ideas for kind of like themes and guests and stuff like that for the kind of the first couple of ones that you did, or was it just primarily, I'll tell you what, let's see how many people we can get in a room together kind of playing games? I mean, did the commercial side of it, did kind of offering people tables and stuff like that, did that come into it kind of at all, or was it purely just let's get a lot of people kind of gathered together?
Yeah, well, so certainly the first one was, and I think we sort of recognised that that's something that quite a lot of people still want, even though open gaming is the thing that they're saying, no, that's what we want most.
Yeah.
A lot of people still like going around and seeing different traders and having demos of upcoming stuff and things like that. So we didn't have anything on the very first one because we recognised that, like, well, we have no idea how many people are going to turn up. So there's no point in us going to traders or publishers and going, some people might turn up. I had 30 people in my house. You might get lucky, or we might get 35. I kind of thought right back from then, there's no point in really not wasting my time, but just putting so much effort in. Like, so we all work full time as well. So trying to do this on top of that is, you've just got to look for where's the best place to spend my energy and spend my time to make sure people have as good a time as they can. Mm-hmm. So if that meant the first one we didn't have any traders or demoers, but it meant that I could put my effort into putting on some really fun events, and we kind of did the what's it called now? Keep talking and nobody explodes or something.
All right,
it's
okay,
like
yeah.
We put that up on the big screens, and like that was quite an effort to get that running and things like that. So but actually people loved it, and it was those kinds of things. Is like, well, if I can do that instead of like trying to make somebody come along that they don't really want to be there, and it probably won't be worthwhile for them. But so we ran that first one, which meant that we had over 100 people coming, which meant that when we went back to run the second one, we said, look, 100 people came, and from the survey we did, they all loved it and they want to come again. But one of the things that they all asked for was some more people demoing games and trading and things like that.
Yeah.
So that meant that we got a few people that came along and they did that, and then we got 200 and odd people at that one, 260 something people at that one, which meant that again the next time it's, you can you build up your evidence to go to people and kind of say, this is what, at least you will get at least this many people. If that's worth it for you, we'd love to have you there. So that's kind of the way we went about it, and it has kind of grown in itself. We've, like I said, we started with the open gaming, and then we kind of put the trade area in the middle, and sort of it is limited in how many traders we can have in there, but it means we've got some really cool guys coming and some people showing off some really neat stuff. But they all want to be there. We've not like twisted their arm and said, they can see that it's grown and they've made their own decision that it'll be worth it for them. So.
I mean, when you're getting the figures and you're getting the people together, are you kind of going to places? Is this when you're chapping on the door and maybe kind of like say, is Devium for demo folk and things like that?
So again, this is the first time we've had, Asmodee UK now, what was his Devium,
yeah.
So this is the first time we've had them demoing games, actually. Because it's the same sort of thing. Like, we didn't want to force them into doing something they didn't want to do. We dropped them an email and we said, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
This is what we're running. This is what's happened so far. Mm-hmm. If you want to come, we'd love to have you there. But and just kind of leave it at that, and maybe try and chat to them. If we like, I knew I'd spoken to Mike, who runs this kind of thing from Asmodee in the UK. I'd spoken to him at Games Expo, and he sort of said, I've seen I've been following you. I'm really interested. And then it was from that they kind of then went, well, yeah, come. So this year, I think, so this is their first year and they've got 8 tables. So we're kind of, and any time we got the sense that we were getting to that point of coercing people, we kind of would just stop and we say, well, we want people to want to be there. We don't want to force people to be there and then them have a rubbish time. Because, it's not that good.
Are you constantly trying to kind of balance a fine line between it becoming a really commercial venture about trying to make it into something that's making money? Do you try and keep a kind of a head on to say, look, this is still a hobby. This still has a lot of ways to go. Was when I was speaking to Dave Wright, who is running Tabletop Scotland, he said that, well, actually, if you speak to Richard at UK Games Expo, he says it's only recently that they're actually making enough money out of the expo in order for it to really become kind of like a full-time concern for them, like a job kind of thing. Yeah. So in that case, do you still have your hobby? This is a hobby. This is fun, or are you kind of stepping over the line slightly into the commercialism side of things? And are we making enough money to put into funding, which means we can create an even better experience for people the following year?
Yeah, so I guess it's always something that we're aware of. I think the hobby fun side of it is the thing that we do first. Yeah. So we kind of go, are we still enjoying this? When we come to review after each event, go, are we? We're all quite open and honest with each other. Are we still enjoying this? Was there anything that you didn't like about this one? Yeah. And then if the answer ever is no, I'm not enjoying this. This is really hard work now, and I'm not having that much fun doing it. Yeah. Then we'd kind of go, well, should we keep doing it or not? But thankfully, so far, the answer's always been, actually, yeah, I love it. And and the biggest buzz for, I think, all of us when we chat is actually just going back out into the game hall. And, it is a lot of work. Like, I'm taking just over a week off before the event to go around and pick up a stage and pick up loads of banners and all of this kind of stuff that no one will ever, well, apart from people that listen to this, no one will ever know that I've kind of done that. And it's not like someone is there, it's not like you've got a manager that's going, oh, well done, thanks for doing all that hard work. So you got to find like the reward somewhere else. And I think once it's all set up and once you go in and there's a queue at the door, I think that was one of the biggest buzzes for me. There's like actually people queuing to get into this thing that we put on, which was like just bizarre. Yeah. And then you go into the hall and you see people that didn't know each other before they came, and they're sitting down and they're playing a game together and they're having a brilliant time. Yeah. And that's kind of every time that's what we go. That's just amazing. So we actually take time out. We make sure all together we kind of just take time out to go and just stand during the event and without, not in a creepy way, but watch people and just kind of go.
You're sneaking in there with that caveat to say it's not like I'm going.
Breathing in someone's ear. No, you carry on playing your game.
Exactly.
I'm just watching.
You need to reassign those resources.
Yeah.
It's the wrong place to put them, people, mate. I'm just saying. It's alright. No, I'm not some creepy guy. I'm the organizer.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying this.
Are you having fun? But one of the other things that I've noticed about, especially about Airecon, because the expo is, because of its size, because of its size, you see people saying, "Oh yeah, I might see who's going to the expo, and I might see you." Airecon seems to have become one of these central hubs where you get a lot of the creators kind of meet. It's a lot of people that have interacted on social media through your Twitters and your Facebooks of this world, and they, the hands go up and say who's going to Airecon, and it's like there's a lot of chance for, people to kind of the content creators that are putting up stuff about the hobby, for them to kind of meet and interact and speak to each other. I know that last year you had Frank West coming up with the City of Kings, and he sat down with who are those guys? They smashed the shapy smashy people. I try to remember. It's what's his name? It's what's his name? There's that Stevie Boy, and there's that
Polyhedron.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, yeah.
Shapy smash.
Shapy smashy thing.
They should, if they ever do like any kind of other, like their version of Board Game Breakfast, or whatever, it should be the Shapy Smashy Show.
The Shapy Smashy Show. There you go. You heard it here first. But no, they met Frank, and I think they sat down and they actually demoed City of Kings, and they went on to say this was absolutely fantastic. So I think Airecon does that thing, I guess, because it's geographically placed. Again, because of where it's kind of geographically placed, which is kind of really quite, kind of cool. I mean, you issue, obviously, the press passes and stuff like that. Was that something you've only kind of recently brought in, or was that been in since the very beginning?
Yeah, in since the beginning. So we recognised that quite early on that it's one of those hobbies that it's very much a passion hobby.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of money in it for someone's trying to make a quick buck. This is really kind of the wrong industry to get into, I suppose, because you've really got to want to run a podcast like this, or you've really got to want to put in hours of editing for a YouTube show, or again, it's that kind of thing I was talking about, where it's all this stuff that people don't see. They'll listen back to maybe a 45-minute podcast or whatever, and not realize that actually there was probably some preparation there. There's some equipment time. There's all this other stuff. And so...
not here, Mark.
Yeah. I was talking, generally.
All right, you're talking about more professional shows.
And it's something I've dabbled with, a bit myself. Like every now and again, I'll be like, oh, I'll have a go at doing a review of a game, and then I'm like, this is way too much work for me compared to running a convention.
I'm going to go and run another convention instead.
Yeah. So it's in a way it's kind of our way of saying thank you, I suppose, to some of the people that were doing this stuff, because you might get free games, I suppose, every now and again, but certainly at the start, a lot of those games are probably not very good, but you're still having to do them to try and get your name out there and things like that. And so we just said, well, what can we do that will kind of say thank you to these people? And so, well, at least we can give them a ticket to Airecon, and they can come and actually just sit and play some games. And in a funny way, it's what we've done as well with our traders. So obviously the traders and the exhibitors pay for their space to be there, but how we calculate their costs is based on, if we had people sitting down and playing games in that space instead, how much would that get us in tickets? So that's how we work out their space. So they're not really paying much more than if it was filled with gamers instead. And then what we do for them as well is, so their pass gets them in on the Friday as well, even though we only have trade on Saturday, Sunday. But it means that they can come and just play games all day on Friday before they then slog their guts out for 2 days, teaching the same game over and over and over again. So it was just for us, it was a way of kind of saying thanks to all these people that we recognise that are working really, really hard on something they love, that is benefiting loads of people, but they're probably not seeing a massive return on that kind of time investment, I suppose. So, yeah. So that's why we do that kind of thing.
No. And I think, as I say, but at the same time, you do get a lot of people they are rocking up because they're coming along because it's a chance for them to meet, other people, their peers, kind of in the industry, which seems to be kind of very, very cool. And I think one of our, so every time when we sell our tickets, we kind of just ask people, well, how did you hear about it? And still every time, the biggest one by far is word of mouth. And way bigger than Facebook advertising, or way bigger than anything else. It's, people going, well, I had quite a good time last time and I'd quite like to go back, and I'll bring some people with me. And that's where we see the growth is through that, really. And I think if you know people, I think if you're, when I went to the Glasgow Games Festival, I went with my son, but there was a group of folk over in there from the local games club I went to as well. So you kind of went there to all kind of meet up, because playing games in a different venue is fun, and they also
Yeah.
have maybe games you don't have access to, and then there's always an excuse to pick up a copy of something cheeky at the same time. It's like, well, I had to buy something, didn't I? Because it was an expo, isn't it? It's a convention, it's an event, you know.
Yeah.
I had to spend.
It was a really good price.
I had to spend £175 on all of these things.
Yeah. I haven't seen them anywhere else.
Honest, you know, you can get your wedding ring back once.
When Frank West is done with it.
Exactly. Well, don't do that. I'm not putting words in that. I'm not going there. But this year, you're dropping the glitter ball bombshell of the guest lineup.
Yeah, sure.
And and I kind of like, we've got an announcement, and you're like, okay, here we go. What's it going to be? And then you like say Rodney Smith.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Yeah. We're kind of still asking ourselves the same question, really. So it's really funny. It was basically something I was thinking in a couple of years' time.
Yeah.
If I badger him enough now, he might decide that he'll come. So I just dropped him an email, and we'd interacted a bit on Twitter and that kind of thing. So he'd obviously heard the name at some point. And I dropped an email and I said, we're looking at getting a guest in. We'd love it if it would be you, because kind of, I don't know if you saw that thing. I think it was, Efka and Lane from No Pun Included. They had a thing on there. They had a tweet the other day that was like, Efka had said, name one thing in the world that everybody loves. And Elaine said, Rodney Smith. and it's that kind of thing. Like he's such just a friendly, nice guy.
He's like the cuddly jumper
of
board games. Do you know what I mean? It's like, even if I'm feeling a bit down, and occasionally everybody does feel a bit down. Sometimes it's like, I'll just put on a Watch It Played.
Yeah.
And just sit there, and he's just his little sunshine face of joy.
Yeah.
And he's he's not going to say anything offensive. It's going to be at a nice pace. He's going to be helpful. He's actually trying to help you. You know? And you walk away feeling, thanks, Rodney, that was really nice of you. So when I saw it, I was like, this is cool. Yeah. So, is he over for the full weekend then?
So he flies in on the Thursday. So I'm spending most of my Thursday figuring out how I'm going to pick him up. But I will pick him up. I'm not going to leave. I actually had a dream. Okay. This is like how bad it gets sometimes, but I'd had a dream about 3 or 4 nights ago where the convention had started and I'm walking around the halls, and then I realised that I'd not picked Rodney up. And, but somehow he had made his way to the convention.
Oh dear.
And it was me bumping into him that reminded me that I'd not picked him up.
Oh dear.
But he was lovely about it. And he was like, oh, don't worry.
Of course he would be. Yeah. Of course he would be.
As he would be.
There's not going to be an angry Rodney Smith dream. There's not going to, even if they turn it up like, say, it'd be the deepest, darkest, most horrible house in the hill, and Rodney be sitting at the table saying, now, join us as I teach you how to play Arkham Horror, you lovely people. And you'd be like, oh, thanks, mate. So, is he staying at your house then?
Yeah, he's staying at my house Thursday night. Yeah, and then Thursday night and Sunday. Thursday night and Sunday night, and then I'm driving into the train station at 5 o'clock in the morning on Monday morning after having just run Airecon. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, he's staying in the room that I'm talking from now, which is our spare bedroom on one side. It's like an attic room. So on one side it's a spare bedroom, and then on the other side it's my games room with a table and a computer and all that kind of stuff.
Have you been DIYing the hell out of that space over the last couple of weeks just to make sure it's perfect?
Yeah, I've put his little characters on a shelf behind his bed, so he feels a little bit more at home.
A framed photograph, It's like, oh, I've just moved my I Love Rodney t-shirts. I'll put them somewhere else. I'm so embarrassed. You weren't meant to see them.
Yeah. Oh no! Look, all these promos that I got from backing the Watch It Played Indiegogo have somehow ended up strewn across your bed. I'm sorry about that.
And the printout saying I backed at the top tier as well. I just don't know how that. I just don't know how that got there.
A framed still of my name in the producer credits. That's
Wow. But are you kind of like going? I mean, how many times do you reckon over that weekend you're going to be? I'm with Rodney Smith. I'm with Rodney Smith.
Yeah. So it'll be a bit surreal, I suppose, because I pick him up from the airport, and then we're actually stopping at Warhammer World on the way back up.
Oh wow!
So he kind of said, the guys from Games Workshop have found out I'm coming over, and he's done some videos for them.
Yeah.
So he said, would it be cool if we could stop there? Maybe if it's on the way. I'm like, yes, that would be cool.
Yes. I'm hanging out with Rodney Smith at Warhammer World.
Yeah. And then if we get a chance, because in Nottingham there's a couple of games cafes, so if we get a chance, we'll go and visit them, and then come back up here, and we're going to go for fish and chips, of course.
You've got this all planned out, eh?
Yeah.
And it's then, where's your wife this weekend? Don't care.
What? No.
No wife? This?
Wow. Sorry, so that really bad League of Gentlemen thing went through my head then.
No, just don't. Let's not. Let's not go there.
Yeah.
It's not Papa Last Blue, is it?
Yeah.
You're my wife now. It could be worse. It could be the one. It could be the one with the German guy. Where he's coming out the house in the garden, and there's a little tube coming out the ground.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be so. That wouldn't be. Where's Rodney gone? Well, I'm keeping him safe
for next year.
Watch him grow. Wow. I'm just. I am sitting on a throne of absolute rage, in a castle built of jealousy. Because I'm just thinking, you're just going to be hanging about with him.
Yeah.
He's going to have presents for you. This is the thing. You're going to get like a polo shirt. So. You're going to get a Watch It Played polo shirt.
Oh, I hope so. I've got a Watch It Play t-shirt already.
Yeah, but you get a polo shirt.
Oh, that'd be nice, yeah.
You'll be able to go about wearing a white t-shirt underneath, like he does.
Yeah. Well, do you think I'll have to start saying Kurds and stuff as well then?
You could
Deal out the Kurds.
Yeah. You could do. Yeah. And then, what you'll have to do is, at dinner, you put all this food out in front of him, and then what you're going to do is you're going to say, because you're not using this, I'm just going to put it to the side. I'm just going to move the condiments over to here.
Each in their own little pot.
Just exactly. We'll move them to the side, and we'll bring them in as you need them.
Yeah. And I'm going to, when I meet him at the airport, when I see him coming through the gate, I'm going to do the wave. Like every video, that wave. Are
you just going to sit there outside in the car, panic breathing, going, don't be a fanny. Don't be a fanny.
Don't mess it up.
Don't mess it up.
It just turns around and gets back on the plane.
Don't mess it up. Don't mess it up. And you're saying, is a handshake good enough? Do I go in for the hug?
High five.
Welcome to We're Not Wizards, where we're currently geeking out with weird fantasies involving Rodney Smith. Have you got a menu of him for what he wants for breakfast and stuff?
No, I haven't actually. I think we just kind of figured we'd just give him English stuff and see how he get on.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah, okay. Sure that'll work.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Like it's a bit funny. It's because we don't really do, like here in the UK, we don't really do breakfast in the same way that I imagine North Americans,
kind
of including Canadians, like they have whole restaurants just dedicated to having breakfast, which I feel like we don't really do.
No.
Like you can go to a Wetherspoons and get a bunch of fat on a plate, but you can't have a stack of pancakes with bacon and maple syrup.
No, you won't get that. You'll have to make that stuff.
Yeah, it's not like a thing that we do as much.
You'll need to buy a maple apron.
Yeah. So I've not thought of that bit. I thought that you might like to go and see York.
Yeah.
That's quite a nice place. And then I thought you might like to go to Betty's in Harrogate and have some tea. That's quite a nice thing to do.
It's just going to be so cool, isn't it?
Yeah, and he's really cool about it all as well, because I kind of said, he said, well, send me a schedule of all the things that you want me to do when I'm there.
Yeah.
In terms of events and stuff. And I kind of thought, actually, so we've got him doing a couple of things, but for the most part, it's just, well, people just want to say hi and chat to you and hopefully play a game with you. So let's try and get you doing as much of that as we can.
I know, because he's quite strict about giving an opinion on games, and I guess people will be watching him like a hawk to see what he goes over and kind of plays, and it's just like, no, I'll be fine. But it's brilliant. I mean, you must be kind of proud. You and Ben and everyone else involved must be sitting there going, yep. But then, this is the thing, what do you do next year?
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. I think we should get Rodney back.
He might just become a regular.
Yeah, maybe. I think, Dice Tower are going to Games Expo every year, so you kind of, now at that kind of level, you can't really... It was Will Wheaton, I suppose, was up there, but then now he's kind of fallen off the scene a bit, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So way up at the...
He actually emailed us to ask if he could come on the show, but I said I was speaking to you, so I couldn't. Sorry, Will, I'm busy.
He's like, shut up, Wesley.
Did you read my email? Oh my goodness. I just thought that would be really funny if I said that to him. Does he not like that?
Yeah.
I just did my best Patrick Stewart voice.
Shut up, Wesley.
Shut up, Wesley. But no, this is one of the things I guess this will do is this will put you guys a little bit on the map with people that are maybe not aware of Airecon as much as the expo, because people will be saying, well, okay, it'll be on his Facebook page, so people will hear about it. And it's not, it's like, say, well, what'd you do next year? But then you just see what happens, because people will have a habit of, once you are known through a couple of people, the next thing you know, you'll get an email from somebody to say, oh, listen, is it on this? Well, I can be here and kind of come along. If you continue to grow, do you have plans to move to like a different venue, or have you still got kind of like plenty of space?
Yeah, well, it's one of the reasons why we chose the Harrogate Convention Centre is because it's huge. The place is massive, and we're only using kind of one hall and one room out of something like 12.
Mm-hmm.
I think they've got 12 huge halls.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're only in the 5th or 6th biggest one. It's still massive. It used to be a Morrison's supermarket, weirdly. But it just doesn't look it from the outside. You look at the NEC and you go, man, that is a big space. But somehow they've kind of tucked it all in at the convention centre. So yeah, certainly for the foreseeable future, I think we'll be there. We like it.
Mm-hmm.
The team that are there, sort of at their end of things, really love having us there. And it was really funny the first time we went there, and we kind of approached them. We said, "Oh, this is what we want to do," and they were just like, "So what? But what happens?" And like, well, people come and they play games.
Board games
what,
happen.
For 3 days?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Like, and then it's that typical, like, Monopoly. And then they came to Bradford.
Luke Hector says he's got that on his dating profiles. I like board games. Swipe the other way if you think it's Monopoly. That's what he said. He's got it on tape. I was actually saying that. I thought it was hilarious.
Well,
Well,
if he's swiping, it's just it's one of two apps.
I no idea.
So we love it there, and I think one of the things that's really good as well is that it is right in the middle of Harrogate, and Harrogate, if you've never been, is a lovely little town, little spa town.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's there's plenty of space to grow into it. And they kind of came to, so the team from there came to the last one that we did in Bradford, because we'd already signed to go to Harrogate, and they, they were kind of, what do you actually do? Can we come and see? And so they came, and they were really loving it. And so they've been really supportive. So it'd be hard to see us moving anytime soon. I think, if anything, so what we've talked about a couple of times is, I don't think we're kind of looking at growing to the proportion of Essen and things like that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, if you were going to think about actually capping it and saying, okay, once we get 500, 1,000 peeps in, then that's it. Kind of, we'll leave it at a level, kind of thing.
I think we'll just kind of play it by ear each time, and we'll kind of, we've kind of created a certain atmosphere, and the vibe is fairly relaxed and it's fairly friendly, and as long as it stays like that, we're happy to keep growing. It's as soon as, if at any point we felt like, we've hit this kind of limit where we're losing some of that kind of atmosphere, then we'll probably cap it at that, and then maybe to look at running like a second event or something instead. Maybe somewhere else in the country, maybe just another weekend in Harrogate. I don't know. We've not got to that point yet, but I think that's what we're looking at instead of just endless growth.
I think it can be unsustainable in some places. I think you can end up losing the heart of, in some ways. I think, Airecon is, you want it to sometimes be that house full of 30 people, because that's what's the kind of the ethos behind it. And if it came into something that was over, you had thousands of people attending, and it's like, commercially, yahoo, brilliant, but you might lose some of the actual magic, and then people will just say, well, it's like, it's the Games Expo, but it's up north, kind of thing,
Yeah, and I think, that's where it's almost in a way start becoming less fun for me. If it was all about, well, we've got numbers first, it's important to always stay on the right side of the zero mark in terms of money. You want to be sustainable, but I think if it became money first rather than fun first, that's where I would start sort of checking out probably. And I think one of the things Ben always says is that he's gutted that he runs Airecon, because it means he can't go to it. So, because he says, it's a convention that I want to go to, and I think that's what we want to keep doing, is want to make sure it's something that we at least want to go to, and then hopefully other people will agree with us and want to keep coming back as well.
Yeah, I read somebody today that said they were talking about listening to podcasts, shows, techniques about shows, and they switched off when the general consensus was talking about how you could turn listeners into monetization, and it's like, you've kind of stepped over the line in terms of what you were doing the podcast for in the kind of the first place. But I mean, in terms of stepping over the line for yourselves, if you want to join the lines or join the queues, I mean, how much is there tickets still available?
Yeah, certainly. So Saturday, as always, will be the busiest day. And it's still 2 weeks to go, but we can go right up to the wire in terms of, if we suddenly have an explosion of ticket sales over the next 2 weeks, we can still get more space. And that's what we do, rather than just carrying on trying to cram more people in. We'd eventually just get more space.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's certainly tickets available. There's no price difference from online to on the door. So, I'd say you might as well get it online in advance, because that helps us know how many people roughly we're expecting.
Yeah.
It ensures that you definitely do get a ticket.
Yeah.
In case there is something crazy happens and we have to stop selling tickets on the door. I don't think we'll be at that kind of stage this year. We have had to do it in some of our earlier ones where we really were limited on capacity. We did have to, unfortunately, turn a couple of people away.
Yeah.
But thankfully, like I said, because this place has just got so much space, we can just at the last minute add on another hall if it looks like we're gonna be or if we see people wandering around with games or not having anywhere to play or opening them up and sitting on the floor, we'll just go, we'll just get you some more tables.
Yeah, exactly. And never underestimate the potential draw of cardboard and tables and potential friendships as well, which is always good.
Definitely. Yeah.
How much are tickets going to go for then?
So it's a tenner a day or £25 for all 3 days.
Cool. Okay. That sounds really good. Excellent. Okay, and if people want to find out online, where do they find you on the internet webs, sir?
So the website is airecon.uk, and that's AIRECON.uk. And then all of our social media is either /AirconUK or @AirconUK, so Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we shall make sure that we put all of the links in the show notes so that we have notes to show. Thanks for coming on.
No, thanks for having me. It's been fun. Sorry
about the old Rodney King kind of losing it a bit, but he's so nice. Yeah, he's really fun, and it's testament to how you're running Airecon that he's coming along. Which is really, 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 really good. I wish you kind of all success when it's running. Yeah. Hope you have a fantastic time. I'm sure that there will be hundreds of people that will have an amazing time when they're kind of there as well.
Hopefully.
They will.
Yeah. And we'll see you there too, right?
I'm trying my best to organise it. Trying my best. If you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, then please go on to Twitter and search for We're Not Wizards, or go onto Facebook and search for We're Not Wizards, or go to YouTube and search for We're Not Wizards Tabletop Podcast. You can go to our website, which is we'renotwizards.com. You can find us on Instagram, which is also at We're Not Wizards. And you can potentially find us across places like Stitcher and Spreaker and Acast and Player FM and all those lovely things like Podknife as well. Or you can directly search for us on Podbean if you want to. If you have liked what you've listened to tonight, and we appreciate everybody that seems to be joining us. We are going through what can only be seen as a ridiculous increase in the number of people that are joining us. It's good to see there's so many non-wizardy people out there. If you have liked what you've heard tonight, then please jump onto Apple Podcasts and drop us a subscription, because that certainly helps get us noticed. And yes, that would be lovely of you. If you want to do something even more, then please consider dropping us a rating or giving us a review. And if you're doing either, then please remember, don't give us 10 stars, because kind of makes us big-headed, and the egos are starting to land. And don't give us 1, because, as I say, I'm a pretty ugly crier. I'm admitting that. Give us a 5, because it's in the middle and it's average, and we're just a little bit average. But the man who's not been average, they're rather wonderful, they're rather fantastic, they're rather super exhibition organising, giving Rodney Smith a lovely breakfast. It's the one, the only, Mr. Mark Cooke. Thank you very, very much for coming on.
That's been a blast. Thanks so much for having me.
There's only 2 more things to do.
Okay.
The first thing is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Mark?
I'm certainly not. I don't think any of us are.
Definitely not. No such thing as magic, people. And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it's a goodbye from Mark. Say goodbye, Mark.
Goodbye.
And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, roll 6s. If you are anywhere near the Harrogate area, on it's the dates is the 9th, the 11th
of
March. There you go. Go Airecon. Fly Airecon. Just give it a visit. If you want some company, make some new friends, check out some cardboard, maybe meet the man and the legend that is Rodney Smith, and go down and have some fun. Sounds like a good time. But until the next time, goodbye.